The film begins with a guy named Taoshiro Takuma, who used to be a famous actor 10 years ago for his movie Birth. Taoshiro is really good at martial arts, especially something he calls zero-range combat with wave moves. People who've worked with him recognize his martial arts skills. One soldier even said Taoshiro was special and was happy when Taoshiro wanted to train military people in martial arts. Another martial arts trainer who worked with him said he'd never seen techniques like Taoshiro's before, but despite his talent, his success faded, and people just remember him fondly. Taoshiro really believes that action movies should have real fights, but that makes it hard for him to make movies like he wants because actors don't want to fight for real. Recently, Taoshiro chose two students, Tatsuya and Koji, to train with him as co-stars for his new movie, but neither of them met Taoshiro's expectations. One day, Taoshiro decides to join in making an action movie where he's supposed to be the bad guy. He's up against Junpei, who's not really a fighter and was only picked because his dad, Takumi, is funding the film. However, Taoshiro gets disappointed again because the movie isn't like he imagined. They use stunt people and the fights are all planned out ahead of time, like a dance routine instead of real action. During a break, the director Tony talks to Taoshiro. He tells him that nowadays action movies are more about fantasy than realism, which is what Taoshiro wants. On the other hand, Tatsuya and Koji, who are also in the movie, start to worry they won't get other roles if their teacher keeps insisting on real fighting. Taoshiro talks to Scene, who introduced him to Tony. Scene says the movie world has changed since Taoshiro's last big hit, Birth. Even though Birth was popular, its style isn't what people want now. Taoshiro's stubbornness about acting makes it hard for him to get roles, and even his students, Tatsuya and Koji, have to decide their own paths. Now, there's only Akira left, who joined just a few months ago. Taoshiro's been training him to become a really good action actor. Even when Akira felt like giving up, Taoshiro pushed him to keep going. But Akira realized he wouldn't be as amazing as Taoshiro, because Taoshiro's just 1 in 100. That's why they call Taoshiro the 1%er. One day, Akira finds Taoshiro in the practice room unrolling a movie poster. Taoshiro explains it's from a movie they were supposed to make after Birth, came out 10 years ago. Taoshiro wants to make that movie real now, so he can show his idea of a realistic action film. Akira's really excited about that plan, but he knows making a movie takes a lot of money. So, Taoshiro decides to find sponsors who will help pay for it. Soon after, they start practicing on a rooftop. Taoshiro teaches Akira his special move, the ganbang punch, and they film it on a cell phone. Later in a room, Taoshiro asks Akira to shoot him with some kind of a weapon, while he dodges using his wave technique. At that time, Akira's nervous, but he shoots, and Taoshiro manages to dodge just in time. Then Taoshiro asks Akira to do the same, but this time, instead of dodging, Akira gets hurt by the bullet. The next day, Taoshiro and Akira met with a potential investor named Mr. Kunda at a cafe. Kunda seemed interested in Taoshiro's movie idea as a film lover. He asked about the budget, but when he saw the plan Akira had made, he suddenly left. Taoshiro pleaded with him to stay because they'd been rejected by other sponsors, and Kunda was their last hope. Eventually, Kunda agreed to let Taoshiro film at an abandoned factory on an island, but the island had no electricity or technology, which would make filming hard. Long story short, Akira and Taoshiro were on an island heading towards a factory. Taoshiro asked Akira to start recording. While Akira was recording, he saw a group of people inside the factory. It turned out that Tony and his crew, including Tatsuya and Koji, were using the factory to make a movie directed by Suno Kinamari. There, Tony explained that they had been preparing for 6 months with the help of their coordinator, Kunda. Taoshiro realized that Kunda had tricked him by renting the factory to Tony and his team. He wanted to use the factory for filming, but Tony refused, leading to an argument. The argument was interrupted by a gunshot that hit Suno Kinamari, killing him. Inside the factory, there was a lot of noise. Maria was being chased by a group of bad guys led by Takenouchi, who used to work for her dad. They wanted Maria to tell them where her dad hid some drugs. She tried to escape and had bodyguards protecting her, but the fight got worse until they caught her. Remembering his teacher's lessons on action, Akira thought this was Taosero's chance to make a real action movie. Taosero agreed and asked Akira to record everything. Meanwhile, Tony told all the actors to leave to keep safe. Taosero and Akira kept going through the factory to rescue Maria. She was trapped and held at gunpoint by Takenouchi. He also said that another dangerous group, the Arachnid, was coming, putting everyone in danger. At that moment, Maria, feeling scared, had secretly left. Finally, Taosero found her and revealed she was just an actress. On the other hand, while Tony's group was trying to escape, they decided to hide on the beach until their boat arrived later that night. But their plans were interrupted when they encountered a mysterious woman. She stabbed one of Tony's companions and demanded to know why they were there. At that time, Tony, Tatsuya, Koji, and another person tried to run, but they were ambushed by a group of men already waiting for them. Luckily, Tony, Tatsuya, and Koji managed to get away after the leader of the attackers named Cicido stopped his men from shooting. Meanwhile, inside the factory, Maria explained to Taosero and Akira that her dad, Kuroga Wakai, was a big crime boss in Japan who had recently died. Now his men were fighting over his inheritance, which included 2 tons of cocaine hidden on the island. Some of the people Tony's group had met were actually Maria's dad's subordinates, led by Cicido, with his scary kid named Ami. Soon after, Ami, Cicido, and their crew showed up at the factory and found Takenouchi and his gang tied up. Ami tortured Takenouchi for information, who said they were attacked by a foreigner who had left them paralyzed. After extracting the information they needed, the people in the factory were killed. Maria continued her tale, explaining that the Arachnids were a group of killers created by Cicido, her dad's old helper. This squad was made up of ex-commandos, whose job was to do Maria's dad's dirty work. A while back, her dad cut ties with Cicido because he was afraid he'd become too dangerous. Since then, Cicido had a grudge against Maria's family. Meanwhile, Ami and Cicido ordered their men to split into 3 teams and search all the rooms in the factory to find Maria and Taosero. Ami warned them not to harm Maria or she'd do something really nasty to them. She also told her dad to be cautious after seeing a broken gun, suspecting that the mysterious guy they met wasn't just an ordinary fighter. Meanwhile, Tony, Tatsuya, and Koji, who were running away from the gunshots, found themselves on a small street, unsure of where to go to hide. They were afraid that no matter where they went, the mafia would find and kill them. Finally, Tatsuya and Koji decided to go back to the factory to help Taosero and left Tony on his own. Inside the factory, Maria recognized Taosero's face from a movie her dad used to watch. Soon after, Taosero decided to confront Cicido and his men alone, knowing they were dangerous professionals. After that, he left Maria with Akira. On the other hand, Cicido and his crew were searching every room in the factory. Taosero managed to stop one of their teams on the upper floor and paralyzed them. He continued to disable the Arachnids one by one without hurting them, using his martial arts skills to dodge their attacks. Taosero even knocked out some of them effortlessly using a wrench. Soon after, Cicido found his injured crew and wondered who they were up against. He ended up killing them, including 2 who tried to run away after seeing what Taosero did. Meanwhile, Maria and Akira talked. Akira admitted he used to be scared and bullied, but his dream of being an action hero made him brave. Soon, they heard footsteps. Akira saw it was Tatsuya and Koji, so he left Maria to keep recording Taosero. In another room, Taosero kept fighting Cicido's guys, who seemed endless. Luckily, the place was full of gas, so they'd fought without guns. Taosero used a flashlight to take down the criminals one by one and blind them. At that moment, Ami had been waiting for her dad's next move. When she smelled gas all over the factory, she decided to set off an explosion with a lighter. The blast hurt her dad and his crew in another room, but she didn't seem to care. After the explosion, Maria, Tatsuya, and Koji tried to run away. but Cicito's men stopped them. Tony showed up to help, but he couldn't save them. Shortly after, Tatsuya and Koji tried to fight back, but they were stopped by a man who was as good at fighting as Tausiro. He even tried to hurt them, but Maria begged him to stop and promised to tell him where her dad's cocaine was hidden. Then, the focus turns to Akira, who's searching for Tausiro. He trips and drops his phone. Akira hides, leaving the phone behind, but Cicito finds it. Meanwhile, Ami meets Maria, Tony, Tatsuya, and Koji. Ami hopes to be friends with Maria because they both grew up in the mafia world. Soon after, Ami and her crew take Maria to another room, leaving Tony and his friends. On the other hand, Cicito finally sees Tausiro's face and job on Akira's phone. Suddenly, Tausiro attacks Cicito and his men to get the phone back. Meanwhile, as Ami walked with Maria, she shared two mistakes Maria's dad made. First, he caused Ami's mom's death, which also led to Ami losing her leg. Second, he created people like Ami. They headed to a building where Maria's dad supposedly kept cocaine, but it was empty. Ami then told Maria that cocaine wasn't important to her. She just wanted to be friends with Maria, another girl with a murderer for a dad. But Maria didn't like Ami's words. Instead, she accused Ami of being a murderer, just like their dad. Shortly after, Cicito arrived, limping from his encounter with Tausiro. He seemed disappointed to find no cocaine in the warehouse. Cicito forced Maria to talk, even hurting her, to get information. Ami tried to stop her dad, but when he ignored her, she decided to hurt him instead. Unexpectedly, Tausiro showed up and fought Cicito's men. At that time, Ami ordered her right-hand man, Sensei, to fight Tausiro while she watched over Maria. The fight was intense as both fighters showed equal skills. Despite using various techniques, Tausiro struggled against Sensei and was repeatedly knocked down. Feeling exhausted, Cicito suddenly tried to shoot Tausiro. But Sensei, seeing Cicito's cheating move, tried to block the shot and got hit instead. Cicito's bullet also hit the warehouse roof, making a hole and releasing dust that turned out to be cocaine. Then, Ami aimed her gun at Tausiro, but Akira stopped her by calling out to Tausiro. Turns out, Akira had been secretly recording the action in the warehouse. Then he urged Tausiro to kill Ami and Cicito, even though he knew Tausiro didn't believe in killing. Akira thought some people deserved to die for their bad actions. However, Tausiro refused Akira's idea, until Akira offered to let Ami kill him to make Tausiro angry. After Ami killed Akira, she aimed at Tausiro, but he used his wave technique to dodge her shots until he got her. Just when Tausiro was about to finish off Ami, the warehouse suddenly transformed into a film set. It turns out this was all part of a movie project Tausiro was working on with his partner, Mr. Scene. Now, Tausiro feels both happy and worried. He's glad his action movie dream came true, but he's concerned about the plot where he loses Akira, who triggers his character's transformation into a murderer. On the other hand, Mr. Scene is curious about Akira, whom Tausiro always talks about. But turns out, Tausiro realizes Akira is an imaginary figure he created for his own mental balance. Akira's presence in various situations is a manifestation of himself. The film ends. The moral lesson from this film is if imaginary friends start giving career advice, it might be time to rethink your life choices.